Okay. And so we already approved that, correct? Or no, we haven't.
No.
All right, we have a motion to make those corrections.
I'm going to accept the correction.
Okay, Director Rudnick, to your motion. Okay, Director Loftus is second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. All right, that motion carries. All right, now let's move interstate engineering up. And Wade, welcome.
Yeah, thank you for being flexible with allowing me to attend virtually today and moving me to the top of the agenda. So I really appreciate that. I've got 3 items on the agenda there: the pay estimate, an update on the construction project, and an update on the Rice Lake project. So the pay estimate is shown there. I think that should be in your packet. Did everybody have a chance to take a look at that? It was for $1,899,921.34, and that's 67% complete. So Abbott, Arnie, and Schwinn has completed most of the plowing on segments B and C, which are the 2 long contiguous sections going into townships that previously hadn't had rural water between Plaza and Berthold. They're currently mobilizing their plow from place to place for the shorter runs to do some of the fill-in work that are adding on to existing lines. They're hoping to have their plow done by the middle of October. They've kind of given a soft deadline for added users of October 1st would be the end of when we would not want to have any additional users to come onto the project. There is a list of users that has been added on to the project so far. And we're working with Craig and Carla and Jody to get those customers, as many of them, water as we can. It looks like they should all fall within the budget, and we have pay items for it and different things like that. So we're trying to add as many along the way as we can to get as many customers out there as we can. So the public has been very. Oh, go ahead.
Your light blue line is that what you're working on right now? And then what are all the red lines?
So those are based on diameter. The orange, which is a faint orange line, is the 6-inch. That's the transmission line that goes between Partial and Plaza. The light blue is a 4-inch line. That's kind of your main feeder for the system going up. The blue line is 3-inch and the red line is 2-inch. So that just kind of shows where the heart of the system is, and the smaller diameter as you get out into the lesser areas for population densities. So yeah, so most of the stuff you see there with the contiguous portions is the portion I was referring to between Plaza and Berthold. That is all plowed in. They're working on the bores and the utility crossings and things. You can see on the bottom right of the screen, there's some shorter red lines here, there, and somewhere else. And north of Partial, there's some shorter lines over there as well. Those are the ones they're going to be finishing up in the coming weeks. So they feel like they are on schedule. Things are going well. They'll likely be back next spring to do some cleanup and any sort of other things. But once the plow leaves this fall, that likely will not come back. Any questions on anything?
Wait, I have a comment about it. If I can, you guys want to listen to me. I'm just going to share with everybody here. I mean, we've been through an awful lot of negativity and criticism over the last few years, and I think it's fun to have a good story to tell. But I called one of the people that are out there on that line, a gal that used to work for us, and asked her, I encouraged her, I didn't know if she was hooking up or not, but I encouraged her to to get hooked up while she has a chance with her going by. She goes, oh my gosh, she said, we just couldn't wait for it. She said, they're kind of a clan out there south of Berthold in the hills. There's 12 family members that they have that all got hooked up at once, and they are so happy. They're so thrilled. She has been buying filters, $40 a month and sometimes she goes through 2 of them a month, but she said they're $40 a piece. She's been going through those every month for the last 20 years that she's lived out there. She has a cousin that's been hauling water to his place for 10 years. She said they are just so happy. I mean, I know it's a remote area out there, but it's just, those are good kind of stories to hear, how people they're just thrilled when they saw that plow coming, you know. So
Yeah.
those are nice things that we could share with people too. Some of the
Typically,
good,
typically on these types of projects, you're dealing with so many people and so many landowners. There's one or two that are difficult. This project has gone very smoothly. I haven't gotten one complaint. I don't want to speak for Carla, but she usually calls me right away when there's an angry customer that calls in, and I think she's had next to none complaints from the public that the contractor did something foolish or something along those lines. So the public has been very pleased with Abbott, Arnie, and Schwinn's work. So that's been very nice.
Well, if the only complaint is it doesn't come soon enough, that's a good thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
I like hearing the stories like you just.
So
relate.
Wade, just a question, you said they will be back in the spring to clean up and so forth. Do they anticipate having the majority of the customers hooked up this season?
That's the goal, to get as many as they can hooked up this season. So we'll have to see how things progress over the next few months here and what the winter does. But it's looking promising that we could get half or so of these people hooked up. As you see, the pay estimate had 67% complete. Even though the plow work is almost done, there's still a lot of work to do for the other 33%. They have to bore all of the roads. They have to do all of the connections and things of that nature. So it's still going to take a little bit of time to get the rest of that work completed. But that pieces of equipment that do that are more standard that you would be familiar with dozers and backhoes, where the plow is the specialty piece of equipment that'll be out of here.
Okay, well, do we want to just go ahead and approve the pay request right now, and then he can move on to the other?
Motion for. I'll move to approve the pay request.
Okay. Motion. All right, second by Director Lees. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Or do we need to voice vote?
probably should roll.
Okay, let's roll call that.
Yes.
Daryl Lees,
Yes.
Daryl Losses,
Yes.
Kelly,
Yes.
Crystal. Yes. Dan.
Yes. Okay, thank you, Wade.
And then if you could just send that signed one there that you have on the screen to me, Craig, and we can get that paperwork processed. Moving on to the next agenda item is the Rice Lake. See here if this works now. You guys see a report? Do you see a report for the Rice Lake
Yes.
project? So this is a pretty substantial development going in. Everybody here knows where Rice Lake is, down here south and west of Minot. To be able to get water to Rice Lake currently, it comes through 5 booster stations. It starts at the water treatment plant. There's a booster station there. It goes to Reservoir 16, which is south of Sawyer. It goes to Reservoir 15, which is just outside of Minot. Reservoir 14, then to Reservoir 5, then to Reservoir 4, which is Radar Hill. So as we've talked before, it is quite a big climb from the Mouse River all the way up to Radar Hill. So there's a lot of energy put into these pipes to be able to get the water up there. So as we look at what they're proposing, these are the numbers from the developer that they would have two phases. Phase 1 would be 32 residential lots, and phase 2 would be 94 additional lots for 126 total lots. This is kind of a schematic that the developer had supplied. This is the Rice Lake area, which already is platted and served by North Prairie. This would be the new platted area up here to be able to get almost double the amount of customers out there from what you currently have. So this would be a pretty substantial sized town if you would compare it to some of your other larger customers that are municipalities. So when we look at how much water a day, that would be the under the average daily flow for the first phase would be 12,800 gallons per day, with a peak flow of 38,400 gallons a day. And that could go up to 50,000 gallons a day and 151,000 gallons a day for the peak flow at total build out. These were the numbers that the developer had provided. The average flow seems pretty reasonable compared to what you've seen in the in your system. They had used a peaking factor of 3, which is slightly higher than what you've seen in your system, but I stuck with the 3 for this report as we kind of go through some of the draft. So to put that into comparison, if we're looking somewhere around $50,000 a day average, 151,000 gallons a day peak, your water treatment plant can do 1.5 million gallons a day. It has to pump through reservoir 16, 15, 14, 5, and 4, and that goes out at 520 gallons a minute out of the water treatment plant, 300 gallons a minute out of 16, 315, 190, 185, and 235. So right now, as we continue to grow west of Highway 83, we got the additional water source from Partial that is serving quite a bit of the area that we're adding on now. But this would come off the Voltaire water source. So that would put this into a little bit of a issue right here when we look at the total build out. The peak day demand could be 105 gallons a minute and 151,000 gallons a day. When we look at that compared to the numbers up here, you can see that some of these booster stations can only pump out about 180, 200 gallons a minute. So that would take up half of your capacity to serve this area. So when we look at that under peak demands, the average demand is 35 gallons per minute. So the way we work on getting that handled is through storage. So we would be looking to be able to serve the 35 gallons a minute and then have enough water on site there to be able to meet those peak demands, 5 o'clock when people are cooking supper, 7 a.m. when people are all showering, those types of things, and be able to do that. So, so we would be recommending to have storage of somewhere between 75 and 100,000 gallon tank built out there at Rice Lake. That could be either a water tower or have a reservoir with a clear well and a pump, similar to your other booster stations. As we look at the pressure drop in some of these areas, I looked at the area around Rice Lake, and I looked at the area up in Rolling Green Township. I don't think everybody was on the board at the time we talked about Rolling Green Township, but about a year ago, we put booster pumps in quite a few houses up there because they've had marginal pressure, and it continues to get marginal as the system grows. So I looked at those two areas, and with the initial users, it would have about a 2 to 5 PSI drop. And with the total build out, it'd have a 5 to 10 PSI drop across there. So as we kind of look at some of the appendices and charts here. So this is the pressure in Rice Lake currently. This would be the new line going up there. It's in the 80s. This is already pretty low at Rolling Green Township. You can see here that it would drop down considerably in the full build out of 126. And I can share this with you. I have it in here as a draft now and can put more detail into this as we continue on. But I guess that was the short version. I wasn't sure how deep in the weeds you wanted me to get today, but the final answer would be that we would need to look at putting in additional storage at the Rice Lake booster or at the Rice Lake location and looking at how we would get water to Reservoir 4. Right now, the weak point is between Reservoir 14 and Reservoir 5. We've put together some estimates for North Prairie in the past that would show two options, one being putting in a parallel transmission line. I think that's about 8 miles of pipeline. The other option would be putting in bigger pumps to try to pump it through there. With this much growth, I don't know if the bigger pumps would be the advisable option. It would be the cheaper option, but I don't know that it would get the results that we would need. So that was pretty technical heavy. I think that's what you guys were asking for, but I'd be happy to go back slower through some of the information and answer questions. So
Director Lees has a question.
So if this would happen, would there be any pressure drop consequences for those others that are served off of that Reservoir 5? Because I believe that's a reservoir that serves down to Douglas and all that too, correct?
yep.
So would we see those pressure drops at the same time?
Yep. So you are not on Reservoir 4. I believe you're off Ryder Reservoir, Mr. Lease. I don't know exactly where you live, but I kind of remember we hooked you up about 10 years ago north of Garrison. If I remember right, you're close to North Dakota 37, aren't you?
No, we're just south of Douglas, and I'm talking the community of Douglas too.
Nope, that's not served off the same area. Let me pull up your map and I can show you where that's all at. Answer your question, yes, the customers would see a drop in pressure. I know there are some areas that have marginal pressure down by Douglas, and that area, those would not be affected because they are not on the same system. So this is your current map. Can you see this, everybody?
Yep.
Okay, so as we start out here by Voltaire, this is the water treatment plant right here. It would go across country. This is Reservoir 16 south of Sawyer. Go across, this is Reservoir 15, also kind of south of Surrey. Reservoir 14, this is your current bottleneck from Reservoir 14 to Reservoir 5. Reservoir 5 is the one north of Radar Hill along Highway 83. And then this is Radar Hill. This is your highest point in your entire system, and it has a lot of customers off of it. This feeds Reservoir 3 down here. Reservoir 3 feeds Max, and it feeds out to Douglas this way. That pipe isn't showing up at this scale. Let me zoom in a little bit here. So this pipe out here feeds out towards Douglas. So that would come off the Reservoir 3 pressure station, not off the Radar Hill pressure station. As you get to these customers south of Ryder, which is kind of near Douglas, these one, because I think you were out in this Douglas area here would be off Reservoir 3. These customers over here, which are just east of Douglas, also have a couple users here that have marginal pressure out in this area. I think they're kind of lowish. That is off the Ryder Reservoir, so they would not be affected either because Reservoir 4 would fill the Ryder Reservoir up here by Ryder. Did I answer your question, sir?
Yeah, yep.
The area that I was concerned about was up here at Rolling Green Township, because these are the customers on the Reservoir 4 on the Reservoir 4 service area that currently have the worst pressure.
So rather than put storage or a water tower by Rice Lake, can't you back that up to one of the other locations where then it'll pressurize everything that it's served by?
My concern with that would be is that the as you pump water through the pipes, you would get additional friction loss. So as we look at some of these flows that we had going to this system, we had over 100 gallons a minute in peak flow. So we would want to get that friction loss instead of it being taken out as water flows through a pipe, you lose energy, and the faster it moves through the pipe, the more energy you lose. So if we were trying to pump 100 gallons a minute from Reservoir 4 all the way to Rice Lake, by the time it gets to Rice Lake, it would probably lose 20 psi. Where if we could slowly fill a tank at Rice Lake and fill it at 30 gallons a minute all day long, instead of filling it at 100 gallons a minute right now, you wouldn't lose that same amount of pressure instantaneously. Did I explain that very well?
Yeah, I don't understand all the physics of it, but I trust you. But I'm just looking at the other users then, if there's plenty of pressure and for them, I can still realize the sense to fill slowly at Rice Lake so that when you get the peak, you have it there and it's not drawing on the line. So I get that, but yeah, so I don't know if maybe a combination would make sense at some point. I hate to see a lot of people lose pressure.
And we did just put in quite a bit of improvements over the past 5 years. And I think Jody could maybe speak to this better than I, but I think things have gone pretty good this last summer compared to previous summers. I think it was 2021, we put in that big stainless steel storage tank at Radar Hill. If you see that on Highway 83, that has almost tripled the amount of storage at Radar Hill. We're putting in a loop as part of this Montreal project to be able to put in a 3-inch line next to a 2-inch line to be able to accommodate for the growth that's happening on the Radar Hill system. That is not installed yet, but that was one of the ones that Abbott's going to be doing in the coming weeks. That's probably going to be the last one they do because it's right next to Highway 83. So that would improve the water flowing north and west, give it another route through a larger pipe. And we got the partial station and took the city of Plaza off of this whole system. And that's coming off partial now. So those 3 things have kind of set you up a little bit to have some breathing room to be able to sustain. But now by adding this, we'd be adding the stress back in there.
And I don't know if you know this, but maybe Crystal does. How soon before they develop this area and start needing service? So they're doing planning and zoning right now, right?
Well, Wade, when you go back to that map that shows the development,
Yes. Is this the one you were referencing? Oh, I'm not sharing my screen. Is this the one you were referencing, Crystal?
Yes, that's helpful. And I'm sorry, you can't see what I'm at, but, or what I'm talking about here. But, move your mouse down. So are you on the south side of the unnamed lake? There's a big development that's been approved here with maybe 30 to 50 lots here. And I believe there's one also to the east of that lake. I believe that one's already been approved. And then there's also one even south of here that's been, south of Rice Lake, that's been approved, another area. And I believe that Teresa has issued letters already to this community or to those developers saying that we would be able to provide water. Are you aware of that?
I knew of one to the south that we looked at a few years ago. They were extending this out into a cul-de-sac here, I believe. This is all relatively new. And there was maybe 10 or 15 or something customers in this area that we looked at. I don't know if that's what you're referencing.
And that was one, that's a minor one, but the one north of Rice Lake, between Rice Lake and the unnamed lake, that's a fairly large one.
So the stuff that they had the lines drawn on the west side of that unnamed lake, or the new one, or not that one, but the one above it, that's not where they're gonna start?
Well, so this one has already been approved. And this, you can see on the map that he
How
has,
about the west side?
this one here.
Yeah,
This is the one we're discussing now, but this whole development has already been approved with lots like this size.
okay, wow.
And then this one here has already been approved. And I believe that Teresa issued letters saying that we would be able to service water out there.
I've gotten some email correspondence with Sean Weeks with Ackerman. And I haven't told them that we can provide water for that one they're referring to on the north side yet,
Right.
because we're still doing all this stuff. Not the 120, there's a 30 one that you're referring to.
Okay, that one hasn't been approved yet either.
No, I haven't gave him specifications if we can provide him water yet. I'm waiting to see how this shakes out first. On this side of it.
Yeah, I
That's
haven't.
all got to do with it.
So the way North Prairie has done this in the past is there's been a connection fee. Just because it's the way you've always done it doesn't mean it needs to be the way you do it now. But the recommendation that I would have is if you wanted to, we did a small review of everything here. If we wanted to do a more in-depth review, we could put together a contract and actually do a sizing of some of these things. And if we needed to decide that we wanted to increase the flow going west, it would be a connection fee then. And then North Prairie would make the improvements to their water system as needed and use the money from the developer's connection fee to be able to accommodate that. Because I don't know that you guys could serve 100 or 200 and some users out there additional without making some improvements to your system in other locations, specifically reservoir 5 to 14. That doesn't mean you can't do it. It just means it's gonna take some additional infrastructure to do it.
Director Lees has a question.
So do we have the capacity of making water? Do we have gallons left that can be made
It's just getting it there.
to serve this?
Getting
It's just
it there.
getting it there is the issue, but we do have the capacity of making.
Have the capacity. It's just the strain, it's just, that's why he's going through all that, just the strain they would take to do it,
Director Hendrickson.
So based on what I know about that, Director Lease, since we got the partial water source, I think the water treatment plant has been running pretty well. I know before we got the partial water treatment plant as an option, you guys were running the water plant in Voltaire pretty heavily. So you have the water rights to be able to do it, and we could play with things of what's served by Minot and what's served by Voltaire to be able to make all of that balance. But right now, from what I've heard, the water treatment plant in Voltaire is, how many hours a day is it running, Jody?
Well,
First of all, we didn't really experience a kind of peak demand that we have in the last couple of years. Definitely it's running less, but I don't think we can get 1 million gallons out of it, not the way things are now. So you might want to look at your figures a little differently. I think 800,000 gallons is probably our max, the way things are now. That's just my observation. Since we're making some changes out there.
Oh, that kind of changes the way I'm thinking now, but, if we were able to upsize or do something, I believe that North Dakota law gives us the right to make assessments on specific users so that the whole bulk of the district, all the users in the district are not paying for improvements made to a single area. Do you know anything about this?
I don't, but I would think the improvements would go to the developer if we would go that far with all this stuff. I might be wrong on
Well,
that.
and I don't think we've done it in the past, but I believe it's in somewhere in that central code, 60135. I kind of browsed through it before, the assessments are maybe an option if we needed to do this, given that we have so much.
I think cities do that to developers. You know, they have to cover the street and sewer, water.
Well, this would be like maybe more of an assessment on each user. And I don't think it can be levied against the property, but it would be just based on the user. But I don't take my word on that. But if we don't have enough water capacity, it doesn't pay to upsize everything. If that's the most, if the most that we can hope for is 100 more people to be added to the system,
Yeah, unless we could draw from the Minot service
or partial.
or partial, yeah. Closer to get to this, one of those stations for Minot though. Yeah, too
Isn't
bad.
partial closer there?
No, I don't think so. Not to the lines that are coming into it.
And we are purposely trying to keep those two systems a little bit separate because the waters may collide, the chemistry kind of creates a different problem too, so that may not be an option.
If you don't just blend it.
Sure.
Yeah, that's what I think.
Well, I just want to, you know, opinion on these kind of things. It seems like it's a little slippery slope that you try to stay up with it, but not get too far ahead. You know, I mean, if this thing doesn't come to fruition, I mean, it looks, you know, you see all the lots and everything, that's one thing, but if it doesn't happen, I mean, we got to keep up, but not, it's a slippery deal not to get ahead of ourselves too, you know, have something to create additional expense that's not even needed, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
It's a tricky deal. How do you know for sure?
And we're not beholden to do anything, you know, it's all been studied and looked at.
Well, and perhaps those people at Rice Lake will need to haul water like the people in Partial or Montreal project have had to do for the past many years, or dig a well
Wells, yeah.
and share wells.
I mean, like talking.
Right up the lake, they can dip into the lake and they can pull out of the lake. It's not awesome water, but bring water from home.
Talk about building a water tower, that's a pretty big investment. If we resort to something like that, right? At what point do you decide, okay, yeah, this is gonna go through, we're gonna sell enough lots to make it feasible, you know, we're gonna do it. I mean, you know, that's, to me, that's the tough part about development.
Director Lees.
So Craig, Woody and I talked about this a little bit, because I had inquiries about it. We could do something that the developer has to have the storage put in, and that's to their expense if they want to guarantee water for their development lot.
That would be the angle I would look at.
And so I think, I agree with, Director Lawson, that we gotta be careful that we don't spend a bunch of money on something that's not gonna happen.
Exactly.
But part of it, if I was sitting on planning and zoning, I'm not gonna approve some of these things unless they know they've got guarantees of what their utilities are gonna be also. So it's a catch-22 on everybody's part. So that if we can get, I don't agree with spending $50,000 to $100,000 to get a true and full analysis done or whatever it may cost by the engineers. But I think something, you know, rough put out there that they could do for much lesser costs, you know, what would it cost for a storage facility there? What would it, you know, so that developer knows, we know And that can give us some direction, probably both people, you know, North Prairie and the developer, whether they can even go forward with that project.
There's a lot of the same discussions that your board had during the oil boom, and it all boils down to risk. And then from listening to the room, it sounds like this board is not willing to take a lot of risk on this development. Maybe I'm reading the room wrong, but a lot of the risk should be put on the developer, in my opinion. So if this is something that you guys would want to pursue, there are bylaws in place and policies in place. Maybe not bylaws wasn't the right word. Policies in place that would make the developer pay an impact fee. And then you guys could study this further. You could make some of those improvements and put all the risk on the developer is one option to do it.
Yeah, I think we're at a wait and see mode to see what they're gonna be doing, and then also what the options will be when they present what they're gonna, when it's gonna happen and what the numbers that we'd be looking at. So I appreciate the information on this, the heads up. It's something to think about. It's a good thing that we're kind of looking ahead and planning and being ready in case we need to. But, you know, definitely, I think you're reading it right, where we don't want to put the cost on all the other members just for this area. So, all right, anything else on it? Okay. I know it wasn't really on there. I know it was kind of an old business with what we discussed last meeting about the amount we're willing to, if we are willing to do any portion of the Velva project. I think we mentioned, you know, kind of think about the numbers that we were looking at before. I think Director Trevecki, I think you kind of ran some numbers with just quickly that put us at, you know, 5,000, 5,100 as possible after legal fees, the percentage of grant that we wouldn't be utilizing. And then, so any more thought by the board on what we're gonna do with that, or are we not ready to have that discussion yet?
Did I add one more layer to the onion, Chairman?
Sure.
There was some discussion on the grant application and how much funds were remaining. There's more money left in the grant than what I had originally thought. So there would be some money there if the system would be willing to use that or not would be part of the discussion. So
Is that grant money that we can't use anywhere else, or has to be used on that project?
has
How
to be
much-
used on that project.
What are we talking about, Wade?
It was $210,000, and we're using some of it to redo the road at Logan. We have a gravel road through there that is but it won't use all of that funds. So if the district is willing to do that or not, I don't know, but it's just something to throw out there. So
Well, it can't be used for anything else other than this project?
correct. So it was part of the Highway 52 improvement project. We put a transmission line between Logan and Sweetland's booster station, which is, and then we upgraded Logan booster station and Sweetland booster station with that money. And there's a little bit of money left over, which is a lot of money, but when you're looking at how much you spent, it's a small percentage. So
How much are you estimate would be left over?
I think there was 210,000 left in that.
After the road?
Oh, after the road. No, after the road, it would probably be about 150,000. And that wouldn't be all grant. You'd have to have some local share and different things like that to go with it too. So, but I don't know if that really matters, because I think what North Prairie was talking about was a dollar amount that you guys would be willing to do, and Interstate would pick up the rest. But if North Prairie would be willing to authorize the use of some of that money, would also be part of it, but, I don't know if that would, cause the matching and all of that other stuff will still have to come out of it, so.
Would we have interstate pay the matching?
Well, that's what I'm wondering is will we just have interstate pay the match and utilize grant money and be done with that.
As long as that's appropriate money to use for that project.
Yeah,
It's
and we
available
can't use it
for it.
anywhere else. Might as well utilize that. And what would the match be on that? 20%?
I think it was, I think it was 60-40 for this one.
40, okay. Well, I'm okay with that.
Before we were talking about having them pay all except for 5,000 or 10,000, so
Yeah, and now they would
saves them some money.
save some money.
Saves them money. And
Yep.
it saves us money and
So Wade, are you prepared to agree to that?
Yeah, we'll agree to, but, North Prairie's been a great client over the years. We'll agree to whatever we come up with, so. I'm one of 4 trustees for Interstate Engineering. I've talked to the other 3 at length about this, and they trust me to make the best decision for North Prairie and for Interstate. Hopefully you guys see I'm fair through this and understand that this is something you wouldn't have had to deal with if it wasn't for the way this went, so we'll make it right. That's one thing that our founding fathers instilled on me is that if we make a mistake, we got to make it right. Otherwise, if our reputation goes south, we're never going to get hired by anybody. So everybody makes mistakes. It's how you deal with them that matters.
I think you've been accommodating and reasonable with all this, so appreciate that. We appreciate the relationship with Interstate as well. So do we have a motion to utilize grants and with the stipulation that Interstate would cover the matching? All right, Director Loftus made the motion. We have a second.
I'll second.
Okay, Director Lee seconded. Any further discussion? Carla, you want to take the roll?
Mayor Loftus,
Yes.
Mayor Lees,
Yes.
Kelly,
yes.
Crystal.
Yes.
Mike.
Yes.
Dan.
Yes. All right, well, it's good to have that one settled and we're looking at next spring is the time that we'll have the approval from Corps of Engineers and review from FEMA.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, well, yeah, as soon as everything's ready and the ground is ready to be broke, we would appreciate getting that done. I know the city of Elva would be very happy about that and the Surge River Joint Board as well. So appreciate getting this settled and off the table, at least by spring. All right, seeing nothing else. Thank you, Wade.
Thank you
Safe
for your
travel.
time. Have a good rest of your meeting. Bye.
All right, we'll move on to the next one on our line is approval of financials. Greg, do you have any pointers on this? Anything to?
You guys got the packet beforehand. I did put a little slide up, more or less, just a condensed version of, more of a simplistic look at it. I don't have like all the loans and stuff associated with it, but it's just the income and expense. So just what we came in for income and what our expenses were as far as labor goes and all the other expenses that take to run electricity and all that kind of stuff. And then I know depreciation is something that we have to have, because eventually we gotta replace all this stuff, but depreciation can certainly skew the numbers a little bit and just make it look worse than it is. So on the bottom one, I just kind of threw a kind of a comment in there, if I threw depreciation back into it, what it actually looks like. So you could see when there's depreciation taken out, how much less it is. again, that should be taken seriously. It is a real thing, you know, that we're gonna have to look at in years to come, replacing things and depreciation is there, but it's just a different way to look at things. Otherwise, the other expenses, it doesn't seem like there's anything too out of the ordinary. I know did you figure out that one thing with the accounting? Wasn't bring that up, but maybe we have to look at it further. How is that a little more inflated? We've seen that.
That entry.
There's a little bit more of expense on the field side of things, like field expense. And I think it's more or less something with an accounting thing that Brady Marsh did differently. So we're gonna look at that a little bit closer because it inflated the dollar amount that was on the field staff side of things, that they put vacation in there somehow with some kind of accounting accrual, we believe, something like that. I have that correct, kind of?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Bethany too.
Yeah, well, but it seemed like it was a little inflated to me, so we're kind of looking into that a little bit closer. If you look at the comparisons.
And this one's fairly minor, but I'm just curious, there's one that has nothing under the name on 811. There's no entry that says what their expense is for. It's only $102, but beyond ninth page or page 9. About halfway down,
What was the date?
811,
8/11, I'm sorry. So that's-
check or ACH.
Without looking at our, because Brady Marks creates these reports, right? They rebuild them, so they gotta move info over. So they could have hit a button and deleted the.
I'll put a note on here.
Okay,
I can
yeah,
email
I
you
think it's important that everything has a line, has the description in it. And then I noticed payment to 7S Beef. What is that for?
That for,
That was when she used the wrong credit card.
Oh.
When she was at Sam.
yes, so Teresa bought some supplies. Did she buy office supplies? at Sam's?
Yeah, toilet paper, paper towels,
And she-
office candy.
And she used her son's credit card by
Mhm.
accident?
Yeah.
So she used her son's credit card by accident, so as a reimbursement for that, when she used her son's credit card to make purchases for North Prairie. I think it was for toilet paper and stuff like that.
Toilet paper, paper towels, candy.
See that we have Healy Aspig, or the Aspigs are often on our expenses, under check details. Do they have a company? They're doing the lawn care.
They're mowing all the front lawn stuff and fertilizing and all that kind of stuff, yeah.
Yeah, because, do they have insurance? There's a lot of lawn care companies in town that have their own insurance, workman's comp for their employees. So for frequently hiring someone to do our lawn care, we could
Yep.
risk, or, you know.
Right, no, that's a good point, and those are all things that we're gonna look at here in the future, in the coming summer, so that will probably end up changing anyway,
Okay.
so.
And then, I saw we're spending another $3,000 with NICE.
What was the impressions? That was.
I don't know, if that might have been the bill cards, that might have been in that,
All
in
the
the
bill
one I have
cards,
to look.
all the cards you send out for bills and stuff.
Yeah, remember I ordered 11,000 at a time.
Yeah. There's a ton of paper have to come, but you know, when you're mailing all those bill cards out, you know. Printouts.
Craig, I like you having that year comparison up there. That's helpful.
So in, I guess on, page 2 of the report, under, wait, down to the bottom area, under, construction in progress. Says construction in progress of Montreal phase 2 and 3 of $3,451,000. But in the pay request, it said that the remaining was 4 million. Do we have funds or is that 4 million listed before the pay request of 1.8 that we just approved?
Is that a timing thing with the accountant?
Well, your construction bank account's gonna always reflect different than the work in progress.
Yeah, well, but it is, you know, the work in progress is higher than what we have in the account, so I'm wondering, are we gonna have enough to finish it? Or did that work in progress wasn't yet deducted for what we agreed to pay today? Because if it agrees, the 1.8 is taken off that 4 million and we have plenty. I'm just wondering. Just want to make sure we have enough in the account to cover what we still have left to do. And
Is that a lot of a timing thing when they
It's
come up
all
with
times
this?
because your
Okay.
pay requests, you know, the money comes in different times, then you don't pay it out until that money comes in. So, yeah.
so we have
this will
1.8
never-
coming off of this 3.4.
No, because that money's gonna be coming in yet.
Oh,
So that money's not accounted for
okay,
until that pay request is accepted.
okay,
We'll send that in, and this will look a lot different again next meeting.
yeah, okay. And then as far as like up higher, some of our designated accounts, we have a vehicle reserve fund, 126. Do we, I guess we'll look at the budget as what you're planning to utilize on that, I suppose.
Yep.
Also, the meter replacement, 533,000. Now, some of the existing figures that I've seen that we've utilized meter replacement is way less than that. So does it need to be that high?
That's gonna be a higher one because there's a lot of old meters out there, and every time you replace a meter, it's about $190 a pop. Plus you have a reader that's called an MXU that attaches it to it, and that's another $190 a pop. And our end game would be is to have fixed units out there, so we won't have to actually have somebody drive out there and pick up their reads via a vehicle and labor. So then we'll actually get all of these reads that will come, I'll say the cloud, onto to the office. We'll be able to read it, and of course, that's gonna be the big expense that goes to that, but that's futuristically what we are gonna end up doing. We're gonna be doing that in segments, so that 500,000 will get ate up pretty quickly once we pull the trigger and start doing some of those things.
Okay.
Those are like cellular units or something.
There'll be radio, yeah, as a.
Just a couple of questions on financials too for you, Craig. In the check details, 40095 and 40097, there's two checks there with a zero on it. Was it voided check?
What page are you on?
Page 8.
Page eight. How are these zero ones?
Which ones?
I see there's a gravel products one,
Gravel products and above it is Ferguson.
so
If I avoid one, then it'll probably show zero.
is that more of a weighted thing, you think?
Without opening it, I wouldn't know.
Already don't know. Figure out that answer to that question too, I'm not sure.
Okay. I thought if it was a voided check, it would just show up as void,
That's your.
not somebody else's, if some other name on it. The other question I had was in the in the statement of net position, there's a line for water sense scholarship, 117,000. And then there's a FL water sense CD, 152,000.
Yeah.
Is all of that money in a CD? Because, I mean, we're not spending any of it right now. We should be earning interest on all of it because we don't need to use any of it. We're not able to use any of it.
Mike, I was gonna bring up the same point that I have on my notes here, and I thought, it's on hold indefinitely right now. We don't know what's gonna happen with it. I thought it's probably not a big deal, but I thought same thing is that maybe like if we put it like a year CD or something, to get at least get something off of it. I mean, we're not getting, like you said, we're not getting any hard off of it now. Right?
Sure.
What if you cash in a CD early, it's just a penalty is a bit, it's not that you're not losing much, right? I would be for putting that in something that would give us a little, extra, because who knows when that's gonna get resolved,
Yeah, I mean, 6 months, you can do 6 months at a time or
Yeah.
whatever, You don't lose a lot of interest. Sometimes it's better even short term.
How hard is that to make that happen? Not a big deal.
Some of the money market accounts are paying almost as much as,
I was thinking that too, if you have enough.
then it's fluid if we have to get rid of it, or we can use it when we get it out. We don't have to go through like wait 2 months because we're gonna, lose, because I know, and especially when you start talking 100,000 plus, those money markets are paying pretty good.
Are you saying you'd want the water CD one also in a money market account or just the
No, I
other
think we
one?
should leave that one. I want to leave that one right now. I don't know what the terms
When it
are.
matures, then look at it at that point.
Yeah, I don't know what the terms are on that one. I've never seen it, like 250 something, I think is in the CD.
Yep.
Something like that.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, something.
So also on page 2, it shows where we do already have a money market. That says FL, whatever, FI. What is that?
It's a First International, I guess.
Oh, first thing,
I'm just guessing, Dan.
Yeah.
but-
That's the first one.
okay, and that money market is for what? This is restricted funds.
Oh, on, that's money that, the way I understood is that was moved over from checking a year or so ago. So that is just a restricted fund, but it's not restricted as far as part of the loans and stuff like that.
So it's not designated.
It's not designated.
But we want to keep that 117 separate though, don't we?
Yeah,
Yes.
no, I'm not talking about merging them. I'm just, I agree. I think we should do a money market on the 117. Leave the other one, the CD. We could roll that into another one when it matures. But, so that's not a problem. We can move some more over there if the rate's better, but, we can kind of, you can just kind of manage that a little bit. I'm just wondering about this extra 1.1 million that we're sitting on this money market account, but it's not really included up in the current assets, section. It's under fixed assets. Well, it's not even under fixed assets, it's under other assets. So when we look at our budget and stuff, and I see another 1.1 million there in the fund that's not really being part of our operations, what's the reason why we're sitting on that money?
What was the thought process? I guess I,
We just didn't need to carry $2.5 million in the checking account.
But it should go under a current availability asset
Yeah.
listing,
That's what I was,
not a restricted listing. If it's not tied to a grant guarantee or a loan
it's
guarantee,
not,
then we shouldn't have it in that.
that's what I'm wondering, because we're gonna be talking about our budget and there's some potential request for an increase. Okay, well, we're sitting on funds, it's just,
Yeah.
so something to keep in mind. Okay,
I just,
yeah, go ahead.
so I just so I know what the directive is, the water sense scholarship, do you want that moved to a CD or a money market account? Is that
They're
something?
talking.
Just actually ask Carrie.
They're talking.
Okay.
Our manager, what? We recommend so.
I mean, can't you get like about 4% on the money market right now?
Well, we just renewed all CDs at 4%.
I'm sorry,
All CDs just.
Yeah, I don't
renewed
think
at
you can get a
4%.
money market at
is
that.
that for?
Yeah. A month ago, this last month.
I want to
Every
get those
CD
at numbers 4%.
I mean, I think with the CD rates, we'd be better off leaving, say 50,000 in a money market to get some interest bearing account, funds coming in, but then put all the rest in CDs on what's the best rate we can get. That's.
Money markets will drop based on the amount you're depositing on.
Yeah, I don't think you're gonna get that much anyway, 2.5 maybe.
About 4.2 right
You
now,
really?
so, yeah.
Some of them are.
Yeah, I got one's 4%.
Yeah, money markets.
Money markets, okay. well,
They've been running even with CDs for the last 2 years,
Okay,
Yeah.
and it's fluid. You need it tomorrow, you take it tomorrow, no penalty.
yeah,
Mine
okay.
is 3 days.
Well,
So,
I mean,
so the
I'm
direction,
teasing.
so the direction would be,
Right, you gotta have.
the direction would be to put that 117 into a money market. Best way we can, and then just leave the CD alone.
Is that a motion?
I'll go.
Okay, we have a motion from Director Lees,
I'll second it.
second by Director Loftus. already had discussion pretty much,
So
so,
this is just for the CD.
for the,
Just the
or just for the
117.
for the water sense, yes.
The water sense for leaving alone.
Just the one that's, just the portion that's uninvested at the moment.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Carla, take the roll, please.
Earlies,
Yes.
Daryl Loftus.
Yes.
Kelly,
Yes.
Crystal,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Dan.
Yes.
How about the restricted, sorry to keep
Yeah, go ahead.
affecting the restricted fund money market, FL, do we want to move that off of unrestricted, or do you want to leave that alone for now?
We'll ask Brady Marks, because they actually are the ones that suggested to put it there, so I'm sure we'll ask where that needs to get moved, and then we can send out an email from
Sure.
the gals.
Yeah, I mean, it was, obviously, if it's making money in the money market, that's better than in the checking account, but, you know, I think when we get into the budget discussion, we'll talk about the Director Lease.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. The issue isn't that it's in the money market. The issue is it's improperly placed in the balance sheet. Because if it is not tied to a guarantee, we can use that money tomorrow. Where this in the fixed asset, the other assets, and you put it in as restricted. To me, that takes it off the table for us in consideration. When in reality, it's on the table in consideration when we're making other decisions. And I'm sorry, that amount of money skews whether we should do a rate increase or not. It really does. So I think having it in the appropriate spot on the balance sheet is extremely important when we're gonna be making decisions based on 4,000 something other users out there that are depending on us making these decisions based on what we know for factual information on the balance sheet.
Makes sense.
Carla, I'm a little hard hearing over here too. I hear what you, well, why has it been done like that in the past? Is there a reason for it or why it's been done like that?
Why Brady Marks put it as
Yeah.
an other asset,
Yeah,
we always ask when we do have big numbers like that,
Yeah.
where they belong on the financials.
uh-huh. That's where they put them.
That's where they put that, so it's like I said, we just gotta ask the question.
If I would make an assumption, I would say maybe because it's restricted in a certificate where it's technically not something that we could use tomorrow. If we did, we'd get a penalty.
It's in a money
That's my,
market, so
that's my thought
It's
process,
in a money
but
market.
maybe, yeah, I mean. You're right.
Check something.
the other ones being CDs, we make them restricted to an extent.
The only issue is if you drop below like a minimum balance on the money market, then do they have any kind of restriction or penalty? Because they require usually a certain odds amount. The base for a certain rate, don't they?
Well, maybe, but I mean, we don't need to really have a money market if we need the funds to, you know.
Then we would
cover
close
costs,
it
right?
if
Yeah,
we found a way that we had,
yeah. 'Cause
when
if
we
it-
know how we can move.
if it gets to a point where it's low enough where there's gonna be a fee to it, we just transfer them all over into the credit, or into the checking account
Right.
and go from there. So that, yeah, just keep that fund in mind as we go into, that was something that jumped out at me. Okay, any other questions on the financials? Do we have a motion to approve them?
Absolutely.
Right, Director Rudnick moves, a second. Right, seconded by Director Loftus. All right, seeing no further discussion, we'll ask Carla to take the roll to approve.
But
Yes.
Daryl Loftus,
Yes.
Earlies,
Yes.
Kelly,
Yes.
Crystal,
Yes.
Dan.
Yes. Okay, we'll get into old business, the 2026 preliminary budget.
Gave you guys updated sheets, 'cause I made a really significant adjustment, actually. And I made a phone call to Brady Marks, because I was kind of wondering about this, because we always had interest income on there. And that's gonna be something that, we got some 12-month CDs, but as we start spending some of the stuff that we have in our money market accounts, of course, we're not gonna be drawing the interest anymore, so that income is gonna start diminishing over time as we start spending some of the stuff down to, fix some of our infrastructure. So, she talked about other clients that had, expecting incomes of $200,000 to $300,000. But they would put in like a dollar amount of 50,000 in there of expected income. And if we make more than that, great, but she said it's probably not advisable to make that part of your income. So I took her advice and I put that in there on interest income. Of course, that brought everything down, because I had 200 some thousand in there, I think, before. I made some slight adjustments to field staff labor and administrative labor.
So your income and non-operating income, why are you estimating that lower than it's been in the last 3 years?
I did an average of like 4 years, and that was probably the most accurate way to do it, but I always look at like shortfalls. Because if you looked at our finances of August 24 and August 25, you can see the huge dip that we had because of all the rain. It's sort of unpredictable, and I tend to look at it and make our income a little bit smaller, so we can be a little bit prepared for a bad year if we get a really wet year.
I was just thinking we put more users on, more members that come on, like we're doing with Montreal and other areas of some growth, and I thought, how can we use less water with that? And I get the wet years, but you know, we were in a wet year this year. It was kind of unusual. Kind of hard to, I get it.
Isn't it Montreal like 143 hookups? Like that? Was initially, we talked about 143 extra users, I thought.
Approximately,
That would be over $100,000 per year in just extra income, just based on the base fee, not including the water usage.
but then the base fee, that's gonna go to pay down the flowing debt. That's a lot of that's for that, you know, the Montreal stuff, as that comes in, now we start paying down the loans and stuff like that. Of course, we're gonna get the water sales out of it. We hope, right, that we have some decent users out there.
Isn't that also included in NP residential though? Those user fees.
I think it's all encompassing that, I believe. Is that in there? For the MP residential as the user fees all in that, or is that just water
No,
usage?
that's base rate and usage.
Base rate together?
Yeah.
The part of that base rate for, our projects is used for the loan
Yep.
and stuff.
It would still be income, but I don't mind a more conservative budget on income because you lose a couple of big farmers that find another source for spray water. You lose a lot of gallons too. You know, I mean, your commercial usage can shift very quickly. So I don't mind a conservative income budget to make sure that we're not trying to overexpend on what we may or may not take in, because I mean, if we didn't have a dry June this year, which June was dry, if we didn't have a dry June, it's even less. Considerably amount less. We only had May wet, August wet.
Right.
You know, if them 7 weeks spanning from May 28th, May 27th, when it started to not have rain, to July 16th, if we'd have had wet in there, our usage would be 100 to 200,000 even less yet, pretty quickly. So I don't mind a conservative income budget. But my question, getting back to what Dan brought up, did you give allowance in that when you're in consideration with new usage, the new users coming on? Because that will adjust 100 to 150,000 there too.
Right, and I did, sort of, but not really knowing what their, habits are gonna be yet out there. It's really tough to even judge it. I mean, you can kind of do like the 50 gallons a person, but that doesn't always hold true either, you know? Some people have wells, they're gonna use it still for their ag stuff, but they're only gonna use the.
Correct.
I mean, it's just a tough one, even when we put, when they put, started taking water from partial, we had no idea how much water they were gonna pull from there at first, you know? Because we got some baseline numbers.
If I may continue.
Yes.
In addition to that, Craig, and in your defense of not using it, we don't know how many users are gonna be hooked up this fall yet either.
Right,
And we don't know at what point in the spring that those that aren't this fall are gonna be. So it does become a tough number, and I don't mind leaving that one off personally. Cause I'd rather have a conservative income budget. Than saying we're gonna have more than we have when we make decisions based off of that. However, when we are making decisions, we have to realize it is a very conservative income projection. So I don't mind that. That's, to me, is responsible to be very conservative on your income side. So I'm fine
Under the
with that.
non-operating, the benefit units, what is that?
that's all
That's the,
I'm assuming that's our sign up fees.
it's the sign up fees on that one,
Yeah,
right?
that's the actual user fee.
for new members or existing? That's
New.
across, oh, new, okay.
That's all that 2,000.
You're expecting that to continue dropping? Because it was 120 in 2024, you're estimating 102 and now 100, so that's $20,000 less.
Yeah, just, you know, we have tons of people that come in and I'll meet with them and I think I might have met with 50 people, maybe more than that now. And you might get a quarter of them that actually will say, yeah, I'm gonna go through with it. Not, there was way more before me in the calendar year that came in and met with Teresa.
But all those 126 new users, they would all be paying benefit.
This is a,
No.
no, this is a different number. So the way that line item works, they'll come in and there's a price sheet. And when they sign up for rural water, they're gonna pay $2,000 out the gate. That's one thing they have to do right out the gate. And there's a cost list of like the parts that they have to buy as well. That's that $2,000 one. That's a benefit unit that's labeled
All
on.
those 126 new people would each pay that.
No, that's different. That's your monthly,
This is non-project benefit.
yeah, non-projects. So all people who are not on a project, that's considered that cost there. So anyone that comes in, and I call them one-offs, they're not on a project, they're way off somewhere else and they inquire about water, they gotta pay all the construction costs, but then they gotta pay all of our Prairie fees besides. So that's really a tough one to estimate because you could have 50, 60 people that come in and maybe they all decide that they're gonna afford to do it and hook into the system, or you may have half that to do it, you know.
And as we put more on, probably less opportunity for new ones, unless we're in areas south of Minot where there's expansion
Right.
going on, you know, but theoretically, rurally, you're not gonna have 100 of them or 50 of them here apply for it because we don't have the people moving out there.
Right.
And so,
Depends on location, obviously, like close to Minot, easy to do. But there's some that you're like, we're at the end, we can't
right,
do anything for you. Or they're so far off, they just can't afford the construction costs.
yeah, it could be $50,000 construction costs. They're not gonna do it, so.
Why are we budgeting $29,000 for one call?
One call. That's kind of a number that's been coming in, right? I mean, it's, the one call system we have to pay for that.
Are you off at a decimal point maybe? I mean, it's been
Oh. I am, sorry.
2,820.
That's wrong. That's a typo. What, on the one call on the first page?
Oh,
That's the system that when everyone puts in a locate.
900 instead of 9,000.
I follow. Thank you.
In billing and software. I see you are budgeting less than we've done in previous years, but I was looking back in our 2020 actuals. We had $25,000 in billing and software in 2020. What What are we getting in addition that we've gotten more than 5 years ago?
Cybersecurity fee that we pay every month. That kicked in, I suppose we're on our probably third or fourth year already. That's an additional 5 a month, 520, no, 521 a month.
She
She
said,
says $6,000, so.
you know, there's gonna be some other stuff
You
too.
have to open it up to see all the details.
Could we maybe look into what we have for billing and software subscriptions? Maybe we can trim that number down a bit.
Get like a breakdown too, so you can kind of
I think
see.
that's that SCADA one too, that was huge. That SCADA just came into play.
For the in-control stuff,
Mhm.
you know,
Yep, that was brand new.
that's part of software, is that. We would categorize that, computerized maintenance management program in that software also, wouldn't we?
Yeah, that's exactly where that will all go.
Yeah.
That was,
So,
we get billed that quarterly, I think, from in control.
well,
That was huge.
we'll break it down though, so you can kind of see.
And that's like 20-some thousand a year.
That's that fair. Good.
Okay, and so with the idea of, kind of get a little more information, kind of glean through it a little bit more, and then do an approval next month. That worked for everybody, went away at the October meeting. Okay,
You have a question on that last page? Got capital improvements, reserves going in twice basically. Down at the bottom, it's highlighted in yellow, capital improvements.
The total capital improvement expense.
Yeah, for 100,000.
Yep.
And then also below that, about 4 or 5 lines, we have capital improvement reserve, under 60,000. Why are those separated out?
The expenses, I believe, is how when something breaks down, like at a pump station or something like that, and you have to replace like a brand new motor or something in there, then you put a brand new one in, so that's considered a capital improvement at that point. So we have breakdowns all the time, so you put a amount of money in there for that.
So basically 100,000 is what we need just to maintain our capital.
Probably, it's kind of a guess, right? We don't know what's gonna break down. We try to think ahead a little bit, but.
Without diving into the reserves.
Right.
So we stick some more into the reserves, and then we have our fund that we use for maintenance. Okay.
That's the way I understood it, kind of just that accounting.
Carla, question for you since we passed on the fee for using the credit card, is that went down, has usage went down then quite a bit, or
Yeah,
less people doing it?
we're up almost 2,000 on ACH users out of bank
Good.
direct.
So I wanted to hear.
And what was the number before?
We were at 1,400 when we implemented the 3% on the customer.
Good.
That's a lot.
Yeah, yeah.
In that amount of time frame.
Well, makes less, for you guys, less administration too, right? I mean, lighten the load a little bit.
It didn't change anything for us.
No? I didn't want to hear that.
Changes who pays for it.
yeah, I still have to go in and see who's paying through ACH and then apply it onto the system.
Like, the action items, I got billing and software breakdown. Does anyone else have something else you'd like to see? Drill down more, or did you want to see anything else that with a higher, income number, or?
We can all look through it a little more if we see something in, in some more detail, and, I guess give you a call if that's possible.
No, absolutely. So you guys can, go out for a couple weeks and maybe at least a week before the meeting, I can get feedback just so I can prepare it.
So you had sent some stuff regarding rate increases.
Yes, I got that on some
Do
slides.
we want to do that right now, or just that'd be
I have it on, I just didn't, I got busy talking.
not really on the agenda, but I'd like to discuss that.
Yep. I do have that same stuff I sent you guys on slide 2. And just to go over what I sent you guys, just for consideration. What I did is I just took 50 gallons per person a day. And then I just broke it down with one person, 3 people, 3 people, 4 people. And then just broke it down at what it would cost them at 1026 1,000. And then applied each rate increase of, no dollars, 3 cents, 5 cents, 8 cents, 10 cents, 13 cents, 15 cents, 21 cents. And then what that cost would accrue over a year for each application. Just so what the impact would be on folks.
So on your last slide that you sent to us, so you're looking at if a 3 cent increase, it would raise 10,085 per year.
Correct. That's a
And
0.25%.
see, that's what I was thinking. I mean, we're sitting on a reserve of 1.1 million that we aren't even using for anything. And we want to pass on, costs like this. And I understand wanting to make sure that our revenue is keeping up with our expenses so that we're not always tapping into reserve. But I guess that's, I don't know if we're quite there yet, but I mean, obviously our net is lower according to your projections. But, that's just something that jumped out at me, that one of the things that I heard running was we keep every year an increase, and we're a little upset about that. So, and I know, on a family of 4, 3% or 3 cent is yearly cost $2.19. That's not a huge amount. But if we start looking at some of the other stuff, you kind of wonder, like with the 65 base rate, there's families that, they're not doing as well as they'd like to in some cases. So I don't know. I guess I'd like to see if we can hold the rates as best we can.
This is, would you grab one and pass it down? Maybe let Craig share.
Yeah, I agree with you. I've said it last year too. Unless we feel it's absolutely necessary, I would be in favor, if preliminary from what we've seen, I would be in favor of trying to hold the rates for 1 more year if we could.
So this is actually what Teresa had given us maybe a couple of years ago. I think it was 2 years ago when we were discussing rate increases. And it's not her exact sheet because I couldn't find the exact sheet, but I had it in the spreadsheet, so I printed it out. So you can see the base rate that a lot of other people in North Dakota are paying. This is all the rural water users. And then all this rate data was assembled by Teresa. And you can see their rate usages and ours. And then I kind of extended it out, what your monthly bill is based on a 4,000 gallon usage. Which I have a family of 5 and that's typically what our bill is like. So you can see that we're the highest next to McLean. They had a couple categories in there. I'm sorry, the spreadsheet doesn't explain the difference there, but that was when we were paying $9.83. Now we're already at $10.26.
Sure.
And I'm not sure what everybody else has raised theirs. But I think that's worth considering.
And if I may, I totally appreciate the comparisons. However, it's hard to compare other water districts because even in Wade's presentation, you can see how many pump stations we have to utilize just to get the water, down the rider and stuff like that.
So I created some other analysis. We grab one of each. And basically, some of you have maybe seen this before when I'm trying to discuss it. Oh wait, you guys won't get it. But I broke down the number of users in each of the other districts. The total monthly income that they would get, how many miles of pipe, and their income per mile, users per mile of pipe, and then average user rate. So I kind of split that all up. Then I put it into a graph. Now, if everybody look at it. I like to use graphs to kind of to spot where the anomalies are. So in the graph, you can see Southwest has the most income in yellow, and they have the most number of users in blue. And then it also has their miles of pipe graphed in those black dots. So you can see everybody pretty much has that yellow bar below the blue line, except for North Prairie, which has it pretty far above. So we have an anomaly based on how much income we have coming in and how many users we have, and also the miles of pipe, because we're very similar to Cass or East Central. Cass does a really good job. They have lots of users and lower rates. East Central has less users, or I'm sorry. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, some of these, like gas be built out many years ago, they're built out all the way pretty much, aren't they? I mean, that's what I was told.
Plus, wouldn't Cass be heavy? Isn't Cass at that Fargo?
Yeah,
Wouldn't it be heavy users within a smaller area there?
They have some heavy industrial users out there.
Yeah.
But-
Flat.
Well, that,
Yeah,
that's the one thing, that's the one thing about it, yeah, they're not spending a bunch of money pumping water uphill a lot because. it's really
There's
flat.
nobody else who has their yellow bar above that blue line though, except for us. We are clearly spending more or taking in more income per user, per mile of pipe, no matter how you look at it.
But if I may, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
The one thing that you don't analyze in that, Crystal, is their cost of water also. And some of their other costs, like the pump stations and that. To be fair, you would have to overlay that in there to see if our revenue we're generating is justified. Because that's the one thing this doesn't show is justification of revenue received. And then part of that justification isn't just miles of pipe. That's one actually pretty minor consideration in there. Because cost to produce the water could be variable. And your cost to move the water is very variable. We've got a continental divide that runs through here that causes us issues. And so I'm not saying it changes it drastically, but it will change. If you would overlay that, would change your, the one line missing here is basically the need for the revenue line.
Well, there's
I think
other
we get a fair-
anomalies too. Look at Belcourt's, the very low amount of miles of pipe. Their revenue is up, and then look at how many users. I mean, they're probably, and if you look at their rates are really low. So whatever they're doing must be utilizing some
So is it
slopes or
subsidized?
something, yeah. And
Because it's on reservation.
okay, and that may be the.
That's
And it's a very small district.
It's a very small district.
But it is interesting to see that we're that much over the revenue. And of course, again, one thing you learn in business about growth eats capital. Capital costs money. So growth is, you got to manage growth. And that's why, we kind of talked about possibly after these projects that we have going now, sort of plateauing a little bit. I remember talking to Teresa about that as well as, because she said that's kind of the plan. It's not a bad idea to kind of buy down debt and catch up to stuff before you start bigger expansions. Now, you still have growth that comes organically. You're not looking for it, but you have the Rice Lake or something, whatever it might be coming. But you want to keep growing, but you want to manage the growth. And sometimes with the growth of this area and the rural areas, certainly, you can see kind of where, our revenue is up there, but, the amount of users that are paying for that revenue is kind of where we're at with our costs. So Director Lees.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The thing I think that this shows though, Crystal and everyone, if you combine this with our balance sheets, with our proposed budget, I think it does show justification for us to hit the brakes on rate increases. I think, you know, without overlaying them things in, like I said, I don't know how drastically it's gonna change it, but I still think that number, probably that yellow line still stays above. And so I think that this along with all these other pieces does show the opportunity that we can hit the brakes, that we can have a year or two, or maybe even more if things are really good, that we don't have to do rate increases. So I think it's helpful in that aspect, to look at that and go, and maybe our people do need a year that they don't see a letter that says their rates are going up. So I think that is very helpful in that. I know some of these numbers adjusted. I believe the Garrison one did some pretty significant rate increases also here in the last year and a half. So there's some of that in there that has been adjusted in the last couple of years. There were people that probably weren't taking rate for quite a few years when they should have been. I don't want us to get into that part either, where we have to take so much rate at one point that, you know, so I don't want us to be ignorant of the fact that we do have to keep up with some inflationary things at some point. Because you don't want to shock people like the insurance industry has, because they tried not to take rate for a couple of years there, and now they're doing 20 to 30% rate takes. So we don't want to get there either.
Mr. Chairman, I just comment want to make that, you know, I'm not in favor of increasing our rates, but I also don't want to see our income decreased much because of the fact that we have to keep in mind that we have 250 miles of pipe that's outdated right now. And at some point, it's going to have to be replaced.
And not all of it is outdated, because we've done all these projects in the past 10 years.
Right.
We actually have a lot of new things.
At some point, you know, it's not all going to end up having to replace it once, but at some point, that old 50-year-old pipe is going to have to get.
Yeah.
You know, we just don't know where the next spot's at,
Right.
you know.
Yeah, Director
This is
Henderson.
another visual example, because I guess I spent a lot of time thinking about this. So here I have 14 million. This is
Come over, sit by me.
$1,400.
I need it closer. I can't quite see it.
I know what she's saying, not saying.
Hang on, I might
Take
get
one
to
and
that.
pass it down.
Yeah, should not pass it. Just-
So I've got $1,400, I'm sorry, yeah. $1,400 here, which represents $14 million, which is what we currently have in the bank right now. Do you guys understand where I see that? Or when I take our reserves, I take our cash on hand, you know, our,
Some of that's not,
checking.
it's not all 14 million, though, because some of that's, we have to keep there for
Okay,
part of the
yeah,
loan, but
Okay,
anyway,
we've got
go ahead.
14 million in the bank,
That's all.
okay? Now, this year, we're also gonna bring in another 7 million. So on top of our 14 million here, we've got another 7 million that we're bringing in, and this is what we pay our bills with. And we take, so half of this comes from the base rate, half of it comes from water usage. And then out of this, yeah, we gotta pay $200, $2 million for loans. So that can just stick that one back in my pocket, okay? So we still
Pass that
have
around.
$5 million that we can use on top of the 14 million that's already in the bank. Now, if we did one of these rate increases, then that means, you know, like, let's say that you represent all the people paying $54 a month. And you represent everybody paying $65 a month, and you represent the cities. Now, you need to give me, I need like $3 more from you. I need $3 more from you, and I need a few more, you know, some pennies from you. But what if we took and we're already gonna put like $1 million back into our savings. And that was based on our old numbers, so maybe it's only 50. So instead of putting $1 million back in this fund and making that fund get bigger, what if we change it out? And I give the cities, you know, like, what if we lowered some base rates? And I give you over there $39 back, and then I give you over there $8 back, and then we give a couple dollars back. It's not even giving it back, but instead of sticking another 50 in this pile from our annual income, why don't we let people keep some of that money? And we can still put money in here, but we can also give money back. Because we have so much money sitting in this pile. And it would basically drop everything to break even. And we can still set money aside, but then our budget breaks even. Am I making sense? I have more graphs.
Yeah, I mean, it's,
So I guess what I am proposing is that, so this is based on what Craig sent us last month, or what he showed us. So the unhighlighted one, it's his numbers. And I would be okay with keeping the water rate the same, but maybe let's look at these base rates, because when we look at what the cities are paying and what the users are paying, there's a big difference. So basically, if we made these changes, we would be able to give, we would just break even with what we need.
thank you.
So I'm proposing that everybody would be reduced down to $50 base rate. So you've got the people who, like myself, are paying $54 a month, reduce them by $4 a month. We have those 2-inch industrial customers that were paying $4.10. Let's reduce them down to $3.10. So there's only 15. That's a very minor. There's only 15 customers that were paying $4.10. So reduce that $100 for those. And then everybody else that's paying 65, why don't we just give them a bit of a break and let them pay 50? We have that ability in our fund, and to still add that extra 50 over here.
But some of that stuff is tied to loans, so that's just $65.
Well, so only 2 million is tied to loans. 2 million must be kept in reserves. And out of that 2 million, I already paid the bank from our income. This money never gets touched. It's always there. And how much do we really need to keep in reserves? 14 million is a lot. And we're not even projecting having that much in interest. If we're not making interest on this, and if we're not spending it, we're not putting it straight into the ground, what are we doing with it?
But I think that's our plan though, is just to start that process with all the solar bank.
But so then what's the game plan? Like, where are we gonna start spending this money? Because I don't like seeing $14 million sitting in the bank doing nothing.
I would agree with that. I think that's what we're gonna start doing is, making a plan this winter and start looking at the older pipes and start kind of whittling away at it. We can't do it all at once, but, start systematically doing it a little bit at a time.
Well, and as loans eventually get paid off, we don't have to carry as much in reserves, right? Because we're required by federal law to maintain a certain amount to pay.
But
It's either 110,
there'll be new grants
120%.
and new loans, so they'll always probably.
Well, yeah, exactly, but
But the majority of those
Protected
loans,
for
I mean, we'll be retired before they're paid off anyway. I mean, they're 40-year notes, that are on there. So we're gonna carry debt for a while.
Yeah, it'll be just.
Currently,
part of
110,
business.
120%. We have to keep showing that we can make those payments. The money we have to have set aside,
Yeah,
huh?
110,
110,
Yeah.
yeah.
110% of the payments,
that's the ratio to show that you got the cover.
but of the annual payments, we have to keep 110%.
I believe that's what it is.
So our annual payments are 2 million.
Right, right.
okay, well,
If we're gonna talk about raising rates on anybody,
right.
if we wanna go down another direction, let's look at what the cities are paying for their water rate. Because why do the majority, the 4,400 users, almost 95% of us, have to take every rate increase, and those cities don't? So if we wanna do anything, if we wanna raise anybody, let's hit the cities. But I would rather give everybody a break and just lower us a little bit, put us more even with the cities.
I don't wanna pay more for stuff either. I mean, as a consumer, right? I don't either, but just the reality is, I mean, as you go along, I hate to see us have to be in a spot where we're gonna say we need to raise the rates by 60 cents. I'm not saying that's gonna happen. But, that's why it's just smart to kind of push a little bit on there. I get everything you're saying here, but our systems are truly different than other systems though too. It's a unique system, how we have so many pump stations and how we're pushing the water. As far as, how much it costs, right?
I'll just add this, what I don't like is that we have this disparity between the North Prairie original users and then the new users that came in with the consolidation. I'd love to see everything pretty much the same but I don't know that bumping up everybody that's the original users to the 65 is the right way. And if we're gonna ever lower the others from 65 down to 54, that would be, I'd like to see some uniformity there. But that was agreement when they came in, that was how it was set. That's fine. But to try to, lower everybody down on this, the only way I could support that with making sure that we have our reserves and that we need, and we were growing to some extent, is that if we're gonna do a rate increase, then we make some adjustments on this to be more uniform. That's a discussion we can have at the time. I'm just right now with the 1.1 million increasing, when we're looking at, let's say we took a 5 cents increase, we're only talking about increasing our revenue $16,809. Well, when we have 1.1 million, I don't know, but I want to expend all that. If this is going to say we're going to take all of our reserve down because we're not raising up 5 cents, then I'd say let's raise up 5 cents. But I don't know if we're there. So I think, we have to be out of here by 1. That was an agreement with the city of Minot. So we've had good discussion on this. I'd like to take this up also along with the budget discussion we'll have next month. We'll save plenty of time for that. Good information, Crystal. Really appreciate the perspective. It's some stuff to think about with the base rates and with the water usage rate as well. I would like to, kind of table this now with the discussion, and of course, if anybody in the public watching this either live or catching up on the recorded version have any thoughts, they certainly can let us know. And but I mean, it certainly is not breaking the bank for somebody who's under. My wife and I it's just us that live in the house. Even 8 cents, $2.92 a year increase is not going to break the bank for us, obviously. But like I said, I think of more of the families, the bigger, a family of 4, that's only with 2 kids, and sometimes people have 5 or 6 kids. They're using a lot more water, and they probably, theirs is going to be bigger, and they probably don't have the extra funds that they would want to put towards the water usage. So I appreciate the perspective. I appreciate how you laid this out, Craig. This for a new member like myself, this helps me put this into perspective of what you're looking to grow. And I see your intent is to incrementally, painlessly step up to make sure we have reserves for future improvements that we're going to have to do, replacing pipe and those types of things. So I think we all want to keep that in mind as we discuss this, but there has been some fatigue about the constant increases, even if they're minimal. And so I appreciate that. Anything else to add on that before we move?
I'll just add one thing, and I was always gonna present this at a past meeting. I just didn't have time. We get windy sometimes, right? for example, we gotta be prepared for, big things that happen too. The last organization I was involved with, we had a pretty significant break that happened on a huge transmission main. And it was a bore that ran under several miles of, or maybe a mile or two of, wetlands. And it was a product called fusible PVC. And when it cracks or breaks, the crack can run for many, 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 many feet. Anyway, all this had to be done on the fly and changed out in a quick manner. And the bill was about $560,000. So just like that, over $500,000 gone. So just a thought process when we're thinking about this stuff, that these big things happen that we don't intend to happen, but breaks are gonna happen and weird situations are gonna happen. That can cost us a lot of money in a hurry. And what we think we have could be gone pretty quickly. But anyway, that's just a point I wanted to quickly make.
All right. All right, members, let's take a 5-minute break. And then that'll give us an hour for new business and the manager's report. Might be a bad idea, but it's tough to put into the agenda, because I don't know how long what part's gonna take, so.
Well, we have those plans, they don't be this great, guarantee the ability to. I don't know how to do things straight. But I mean, the base rate, some of them are at 65.
Yeah, the reason for that was a grandfathering issue. This like another region.
Okay, yeah,
And
we're actually, we
they
tested
were
the
at a
meter
different
in the
rate
shop
that agreement
multiple
that-
times,
that
and
They just limited their base rate.
yeah, we-
But getting the new, and it might also have been people that came on earlier,
well.
but anytime you change. So I'm saying you're at that.
If I can interject,
$4
what usually
worth of
happens,
work.
people call in with
A
like,
new person will have.
there's no way to use this much water.
So they will, through attrition, they will eventually, other than those that sort of forever, you know, if
Then in the same
property
breath,
changes hands or whatever,
put them at ease. Well,
any
now,
new development, all of that
they've
always.
Really
goes up.
been conscious about.
So
tightening
over
all this
time,
stuff.
it will
The water
likely be
usage starts
less and
dipping
less
down.
and less.
We put in water meter, it's gotta be
And
good.
more of the
Yeah,
higher.
And
And I guess I wouldn't
You
mind
know,
seeing a
we brought
breakdown,
back-
like,
Just recently, we were about.
how
that
much,
meter,
how much
and we
revenue
did like
difference is there
five-
between our
or not five,
54
so
reserves.
we'll
But
five
it's probably
pail.
not that huge
And
number
the
wise.
test showed
I
that
don't
we
know
was
how many.
4.5 jet less, and it fills it at 5, that's what.
I know
Yeah.
that.
So,
Per thousand
I
gallon
can't tell you how many times.
is probably
1.9.
the most important.
And they will swear to you, but by the time you get there.
I just think that was the original agreement and they were brought in like that.
Oh, yeah, so,
It's going.
And I need a copy of that.
yeah.
You know, but you can clearly see that there was an issue and they fixed it.
Yeah, yeah.
When that was created,
You got a
it might have been before you were.
Yeah.
It was, and I think that's just where they won't.
That's my
Yeah,
question, is
oh, yeah.
because some of them government grants, loans are
Yeah, yeah.
So.
part of that,
I-
part of the rural development.
I couldn't even speculate.
Shop building.
Hard that you have to show that that project big, because I know
Grandkids
on
had used to spoil
sewer
it.
in Douglas, when they applied for the grant to repair one of the main
Want to
lines,
come back up, sure.
they had to do a
And,
minimum
and
rate
I didn't think of it, I got, went
to
in there
guarantee
day and a
that.
half
They
later.
didn't have a choice.
Yeah,
They could not stay
my
with
bill
their
was
own
up 7,000
It could
gallons,
be.
that,
And
that's why.
That, and so that would,
Usually
that would
about
be something
100,
we have to
about 100.
answer.
Yeah, yeah.
Just rates.
Right, I just. Changing the base rates. Expenses do nothing but go up.
So, yeah, and not to say that they're
I got.
the meter,
You know, like, it's like,
when you can come meters, they most.
right, I got.
Maybe.
You know, someone could have.
User.
Remember last
That
year it
starts
was
looking
on the
higher.
screen?
It's gotta have some,
Oh,
but
because
But
I'm
it's,
sitting here
it's back.
online.
My main
Had a
point
quote
is,
There
was
is.
the reason 65 was set, was it tied to a loan payability? Because that's not unusual to happen, because like I said, I know the verified fact that Douglas, when they got the grant
And then it was
slash loan to repair the sewer
So
main,
how did you just?
they had to raise their rates, they forced them.
and I'm not sure who.
And that's,
But then would we need to have that higher rate for educators or just these people that move on?
That's what you were trying to do first thing this morning.
It was.
No,
it was a
I think- I think that's why
Even
it's
if it's
65 is on
sitting
some
where
and 54 on
It
others.
goes to the
that
person
to that
talking, should always be on this room on the.
Because
So, I don't know.
it happened to be the main, it affected
Maybe
everybody,
finally-
in Douglas, so everyone had to go, there wasn't a
This is
choice,
the-
because it was,
The
Every
voice,
single
yeah.
and it.
Cause I mean, I'll purposely hit here
Water and
an
everything in
hour
my
early,
basement,
just make sure everything's working.
So, right on front of
You know,
my house.
because I don't wanna be like, I'm this, oh my god. it's not working.
but they,
It's just a
you
position.
cannot go below
Oh,
that
it's nice and
Right.
clear too.
until you pay that loan off.
And-
Oh, okay.
So some of that's the question I have,
I'm
Charlotte,
thankful
do you
we
know
have
if
this
anything
room.
was tied
This
to
is nice to.
Yeah.
those base rates that are 65?
Yeah, that's the loan payback.
So that's,
That's what interest
so
rate, that's
we can't
65.
lower that one until we pay that loan.
Right.
Only on those specific projects though, correct?
Yeah, that's all the project people, all the project customers, and they're just over two
But like
thousand.
but if I sold my house and I'm paying 54, the person that buys it would pay 65,
Yes.
even though I'm not on a project.
That was implemented on the merge, yeah.
So that would. I'd be curious how many that would affect. Not an extremely important number at this time to get, but how many of them have happened? That they went from 54 to 65 upon a sale or a transfer of,
That kinda happens all the time, doesn't it? Right now.
I've heard it happening when a husband, he gets remarried and he adds his wife to the bill, then they want to charge the 65.
No, it doesn't change. I don't care.
Or maybe if they get
It only
divorced,
change-
and
only
then you want to
changes on
take
a
someone
sale.
off.
Only
I've been
changes
told.
on a sale. That's all. No name changes, no updates, that don't change. No family, if a family member buys a property, the rate doesn't change either.
what if, so here's another scenario, and I don't know if it's happened or not, just come to mind. Because we do have $1,000 hookup fee if someone decides to unhook, right?
2,000, whatever the user fee is.
It's 2,000 now.
It's been 2,000 for.
If you've had the service and you've had the meter taken out, it's 2,000
If
for
you
the meter back in.
You know, if you deactivate the service and you reactivate it, it depends. It's either a calculation of back pay to base rate or whichever is the lesser of the two.
On a project.
No,
Or just actually,
There's-
anyone
Just.
this, any,
Okay, so this happened. This was like, there was a rehook that I got called about that cost 1,000.
that would have just been the back pay of the base rate calculated then by the number of months that it was deactivated.
Okay, so does rate go up at that point then? On a rehook is my question,
It would start out at 65.
even though in that everything prior to that was 54.
Yes, because it's considered a new service because it was deactivated.
So that's,
Because the
that gets back to a little bit of what you're saying. That no longer is a 54 rate. Why does that, when you calculate out your 54 for your back, and then you go to a 65, I mean, I get it and I don't get it, right?
Right.
So I mean, that's, yeah, just.
That's good information. Okay, let's resume the meeting. We'll go into new business. Robert Gilbertson, boat motor pump.
I just got a quick one on this. I know what the answer is gonna be, but we had a line break in an area. And during the line break, Robert was working on his boat and he had his earmuffs on his motor and he said he was running water through it. And then when he had the loss of pressure / flow, he claimed that his pump burnt out because it didn't have sufficient enough water that was going through it. And he was asking for compensation for, at first it was just for everything to get fixed. And then he said he'd settle on just the water pump repair kit. And I explained to him what our bylaws state, that we can't cover that. And then he did bring up a point, and I did fail to do this. I did not put out an alert when we fixed the break, and he claimed that that alert had been sent out to the area. He would have not had been doing that project at the time. And that loss of pressure may have happened before we even, figured out what was going on too. So it was hard to really time that. I told him that he could come to the, he was very nice, but I told him he can come to the board meeting and address the board. I said, I can do it for you. And I said, I'm gonna say exactly what happened. And that is actually exactly what happened. So,
Nope. You ran out of water or just ran low pressure?
I think he just had lower pressure that was going through it, I believe. We didn't have enough water going through it. Now, again, I wasn't there. I mean, I know that if I'm working on my boat, I'm not gonna leave.
Well, right, I mean, that,
That's
if
what
I'm
I'm
sitting on my boat and I see there's no water coming out, I'm gonna shut the motor off.
I have the same kind of setup that he's talking about there. And you stand there and you watch it, make sure there's water coming out of it.
Right.
I think it gets into the precedence issue again, if we're gonna do that, and every time there's a drop in pressure or a rate where service is cut, I don't know that we can, especially with the way the bylaws are, I think we're in violation. But one person. Thoughts from the members? Motion to approve. Okay. Motion. No motion there.
I'll follow up with him and talk to him again.
Okay. Yeah, and I think you're right. You know, it's a bylaws issue and, you know, we had that issue with the other issue that happened this spring and that was, you know, I guess we're potentially gonna ask our insurance if they're gonna cover it, but that ended up being where it didn't qualify or didn't,
Meet the bylaws.
yeah, it was not in compliance with bylaws, and then, you know, he's worked to submit it to his insurance at this point, so, you know, I think that's, you know, maybe what he'd have to do. It's not a huge amount of money I get, but, I think we gotta be consistent. That was why I voted the way I did on the first one, so. Okay, use of petty cash. That we had, Director Henderson.
I requested that this be added to the agenda because Craig had provided me petty cash register for this year and also last year. And when I was looking at the last year's petty cash, I saw that $503 was reported missing and nothing was done about it. So that's concerning. And then furthermore, there's a lot of lunches taken out of there. We paid, I forget the name of it, it was maybe Kaylee to decorate the office. We paid her $175 out of petty cash. That was classified under office expenses. But yeah, employee lunches often rounded to the nearest dollar, like $61 instead of $41.25. You know, so it seems like that petty cash is being used a little loosely. And I would like to know who was in charge of that money when the $500 was missing.
I know I talked to Carla about that and, they did go to a different way that they count the money. It was where it was maybe counted once every 3 months. Now it's counted weekly to make sure that it all matches up. And, nobody was sure where it went. Someone obviously took it. We don't know if it could have been a former employee or who it could have been in 24. That's kind of the answer that I got.
Who has access to it?
We all have access to it. It's in a lockable fire safe. Well, it's not really a safe, the filing cabinet, but it locks at night. You know, and typically that thing has been kept unlocked. So anyone coming through the office, they're, I suppose, taking it during normal operations. So, we have said we gotta keep that thing locked at all times unless we're actually making change for somebody that comes in and pays.
Well, then I also observed that, I believe it was Carla had been paying for Amazon Prime on her personal card and she reimbursed herself out of that fund for the Amazon Prime membership. So ultimately, that should have been a check, right? A compensation.
So it's documented.
Well, we are relying on you to exercise good judgment over our finances. We put a lot of faith in having things done properly.
And going forward, that's what we're gonna do. We address the lunches, that's came to a halt. And we're not gonna write checks on any kind of labor products, things that happen at the office. That's gonna write checks on cash, I think, in my opinion, petty cash is meant to be for these quick things that happen where we gotta reimburse someone because their credit card didn't work at the pump or something. We gotta do something like that, but
Well, I'll just say with my company, we keep some cash on hand, very little, because most of it comes in. People pay by check or online or credit cards for the most part. But we do get some that like to come in and pay cash. Once in a while it happens. So I keep some cash on hand that is pretty restricted as far as which office staff have the ability to access that to make the change, are usually the ones accepting the payment. And when that either builds up to enough where we deposit, or if it just where somebody comes in and we reimburse, or because generally we're gonna put what their payment was into the deposit for that day. So then our amount that we have for change drops. Because we gave them change and that's all going in there. Now we're out that amount. So every so often we'll take a check and we'll go in and then write that as, for change or something like that, and we'll set that up. If an employee comes in with they had to use a credit card because they had to get a hose or fuel or something on the route where we don't have a charge account, we always cut them a check because it's categorized right. It's a check to them. They just cash that. We don't mess with the petty cash stuff. And I guess, I don't know if that would be your policy from here on out. That'd be my preference. Because I think it's so much cleaner, and then you're just using cash on hand for people that might come in and pay. If there is something that absolutely it's okay, you're gonna, $5 for something that's really quick, and you're categorizing it anyway. Maybe it's easier to do that than writing a check, but the check is so much easier to follow. I guess that would be, my suggestion. I don't.
How much is in the petty cash at one time?
1,500 is usually where they.
Is that what we have is 1,500?
yes,
Okay.
which may be on a little bit of a high side.
That's quite a bit.
Yeah, I guess, what's the largest amount at any one time that might go out that would be considered petty cash? Cause it seems like we would do the same thing. It's either credit card or it's a check, type transaction. If there's really somebody to pay or you want a paper trail. It'd be much easier.
What do we receive in cash payments in a month? I mean, obviously it varies, it's just kind of an average.
I have absolutely no idea. I'd have to really add up the cash deposits.
I mean, we had a new user that just signed up and he brought in $3,800 of the cash. The other day. I mean, that's frequently that happens. I mean,
3,800?
3,800.
But I mean, okay,
I mean,
See, that's something that's gonna get
that's
deposited
gonna
right
get
away.
deposited.
Right.
You're not making $1,500.
We're making change right now.
But you're making
Right.
$1.20, you're making 75 cents, you're making $4.90, you're making,
Correct.
I personally feel that petty cash should only be used for that, nothing else. I don't think that it's wise to use it for other things because of the opportunity for it missing. I think it needs to be restricted to who has access to it. Management and those handling, billing with people coming to pay with cash. Because you don't have that, chain of responsibility. You don't have that ability to narrow down and go, here's who's responsible and here's whose head's gonna be had if something goes upside down. Not saying it's going to again, but we wanna put an end to it possibility. Cause I mean, just off the top of my head, I would think $300 to $500 would be more than enough to have in petty cash if you are narrowing it down to those uses. Because we do have, and correct me if I'm wrong, we do have the ability. Say he comes in over there, the credit card didn't work to put gas in the vehicle. We have the ability to cut him a check quickly, don't we?
Right.
I mean, that's, so we don't have to hand it out in cash Because that actually goes back on the books then to be categorized to Dan's point of, you know, in our vehicle expenses categories, wherever it ends up in there. So I think for your guys' benefit, to relieve you of the pressures of managing $1,500 in petty cash, to just eliminate everything else other than make a change of.
I think when I was in there, a lady came in and paid cash once when I was in the office one time, but it's probably not a lot. It's not a lot for me, but, every so often somebody does want to.
Yep, I understand.
You know,
Cash is
and,
king still.
you know, and if somebody comes in, the most you're ever gonna, give in change is less than $100. But if you wanna have more for a few that might come in a day, you know, you're gonna have, you know, 300 would be more than enough. And then if somebody ever breaks in and steals it, there's less loss too. So that's a possibility. So,
Well, and then just one more thing. So I brought it up, Kinley was paid for Xmas decorating and office help, $175, and it was classified under office supplies. Clearly not office supply. So who's categorizing this? And was that a wise decision?
Where else is it gonna get categorized?
Who's Kinley?
Teresa's granddaughter.
Okay, so she gets paid by a check and that's considered wages.
No,
It's not office supplies. There was no supply created. It wasn't paper clips or pencils.
well, and even if it's not set up as, an employee, because if somebody that's just often, every so often, you can set up as contract labor. And that's an easy way to do it. And then you can keep track of contract labor in a whole different line item.
But now our office
then we know
supplies
what it
has a
is.
bigger expense. How many other
Right.
things are going on?
That's what I'm saying.
We really need
We
to
can see what
narrow down
contract
what
labor is.
Office supplies or office supplies.
Yep.
And that can be written as a check also.
Yep. Okay, and
You
that's,
don't have to issue a 1099, it's under $600.
yep. Okay. It's all right. That points down. Let's move on to the third one, the accrual of paid time off. We have a policy, correct? I mean, how much?
Correct. I have stuck it up on the board there for, so at 5 years of employment, you can get 8 hours a month at a maximum of 240. Then 5 to 10 years, you get 10 hours per month with a maximum of 240. And after 10 years, you can get 12 hours per month at a maximum of 240.
And that, does that roll over to the next year or what?
Yes, I mean, you don't lose anything.
Okay,
Yeah, it's just that there's a 240 total, so once you get that, you don't accrue more, right?
You're supposed to be done.
It's gotta be used.
Yeah.
Yeah, you gotta use it, or keep it under there.
Well, and I kind of wanted to discuss this today. You guys are still thinking, but I've driven by the office several times because I live right down the street from the office. And I haven't seen Teresa's vehicle there hardly ever. I call it Teresa's vehicle, but it's our vehicle, but the vehicle that Teresa drives has hardly been there at all. So is she still accruing vacation? She's not in the office?
She approves her vacation, but she'll, whatever she takes off on the
Has
books,
she taken any vacation in the past few months?
that's part of that. No. But she's been using sick leave.
Yeah.
She's been using her sick leave.
don't you require, proof of being sick? Especially if it's like a week or something,
I don't believe so. Some people have like a rule where it's, if it's after 2 days, you have to do, but we don't currently have a policy if you call in sick that we have to require a doctor's note or anything like that.
so how much is the sick leave is,
720 hours
700?
maximum.
720 hours?
Maximum 90 days.
So
I would call it like
Yeah.
massive illness.
most places won't allow sick leave to be used as just paid time off.
No. You gotta
Like,
verify this.
And they might give you a 10% or something. I don't know if there's a policy for it, but if they, let the company, sometimes they get paid sick leave at like a 10% rate or something, and then they get their paid time off, but
Our sick leave has it where employees don't get paid.
You're not paid out of it if you don't use it.
So basically, if she took a week off this summer. She used sick leave, which doesn't get used after retirement or termination. Just utilizing that, but then reserving the vacation for when she does leave after this month. And it was actually, could have been more vacation than it was sickness. For the veterans on the board, was that discussed in the, any of the provisions of how much she could utilize? Cause isn't she way over the 240 hours that is in our policy? Is she like at 400 some hours?
She's at quite a few, I believe.
How is
I don't have
that?
the total in front of me.
How long has this policy been in place?
The employee, I'm not sure.
At least ever since the merger, at least.
How did she accumulate so much is my question. Is that 240 your cap?
If we're talking about the separation agreement, what we should, go back what Monty drew up as a separation, we need to go back and look and see
Yeah.
how that was, because whatever's on that agreement, I don't know that can be changed right now, can it? I mean, if it was signed.
I think we need to reference that. That's what we need to look at to see what was discussed, because I don't remember for sure. I remember talking about when she would use her sick leave, and that should all be in the agreement. I don't remember, or not sick leave, vacation. I don't remember sick leave being discussed, so.
But if it isn't specified that she'd have to have 400 hours of vacation time, wouldn't the agreement be under the assumption that she'd be at 240?
That's what we'd have to look at. I don't know. And I don't know when this policy started, if she accumulated it before, we'd have to know how she was set up, so.
Well, and I know Craig, you've mentioned that you're gonna use the QuickBooks as far as keeping track of the hours like we do.
That's the direction.
Utilize it, that moves on to be showing up on the paycheck. And, and then you it's so much easier to track it. And it accrues automatically on there. And then, if we have a rollover at the end of the year, if they're over a certain amount, they don't use it, then it gets taken away, rather than just not accumulate. It accumulates so that if they use it, they can still get those hours. So like if in November, they're sitting on, 10 hours more than they would normally be allowed to roll over, and they use those 10, then they still can keep accruing them and building more to use in the next year. So it just be offset. So, I'm glad you're gonna move to that and make that much more trackable. But I think we really need to take a look at because as of by our next meeting, she's gonna be on her vacation time. And if all the other employees have to be stopped at 240, I don't understand why somebody could accrue over that when it's against the policy. So if we can find out how long that policy's been in place, take a look at the separation agreement, see what was put in there. Wouldn't hurt to take a look at the minutes that you might have from that meeting, to see what was discussed.
I believe all those policies are available on the website under policies and procedures,
Yeah.
under 4.6, and it says in parentheses underneath the day that it was enacted. And most of those are dated to the merger.
Okay. What gets me is the use of sick leave for vacation at the time. I mean, that rubs me wrong a little bit, because vacation, sick is sick.
I think it's inappropriate use, actually.
Yeah, it's
There's probably a state law that references some of that for government entities, I would guess.
I don't know what you might say about that, but just seems a little disingenuous.
And how she got to have more vacation, my discussions with her is that, for a fair amount of time, she was taking on 2 roles and she wasn't able to take any vacation. So she was going over, and I think she had, board discussions at some point that allowed her to carry over the 240. That was kind of the discussions I had with Teresa, why she got to where she's at now for total vacation. So just to
Well, if
give
we
her a
could-
point of view, she's not here, I know.
Were
but-
we able to identify minutes where that took place? And I emphasize that as particularly because up until 2020, I agree. Up until 2020, Teresa was the one taking the notes. So such a discussion was held and it was withheld from the meeting minutes. That's on her.
And we should have to verify that through
Well,
meeting, but it,
I think speculating is hard. I think we need the documents. We need to look at minutes. We need to look at the severance agreement. If there's any history of policy before, you say the merger is when this started?
That's just, everything was
You're just
readapted,
noticing that, okay.
readopted.
Because different businesses do have different accrual caps for, you could set that. Like in my QuickBooks, I can set my accrual caps for my different employees and things, depending on their position and their time. Might have had an agreement originally that had a different cap or whatever, or there might not have been one at all, and then one was put in place. So that would have to be looked at. I think we just need to look at the information that we have about it. And we may need to review the sick leave that was used and how it was used.
And I was in attendance when they readopted the current policies. And there wasn't a lot of changes from the previous one. I didn't have access to view it, but as far as the discussion that the board members made in the room, it was pretty much just readopt them with a new entity.
And I think we will be bound to whatever that severance agreement was. So if that's a legal document, so unless it's out of compliance with the policy or something, I think we have to review that stuff to be able to make any assumptions or decisions.
Anybody else? So I'm noting down that we'll need to review the severance agreement, any meeting minutes that deal with board approval of the policy in use, and then also use of sick leave. Since the decision of well, I would say since the signing of the severance agreement. And we'll take that up next meeting.
Mr. Chairman,
Veterans.
who approves sick leave?
Jody typically approves the distribution guys and I approve the rest of the staff. Now, I don't approve Teresa's stuff. I'm not her boss, you know, so.
There's no approval, accountability on the sick leave that's been taken.
Well, in this transition period, unless it was stated in the severance agreement, he's right. He's not her boss, you know, he has no authority over her, what she does in her day but, you know, we should be.
So ultimately, Teresa's responsible for approval, self-approval.
Right, so I mean, like, if I was,
Technically, we're still her boss.
If you were to take,
if I was to take time off, I would fill out a vacation request or whatever, and I'd probably sign it myself, but, you know, I would attach it to my time card, anyways.
That's getting to my question and my
Right.
point. Yeah.
Okay. Anything else anybody wants other than the three that I mentioned?
And no, that the whole thing is the severance agreement first, minute second. And
Yeah.
But if contract is broken, I would like to know from the attorney, on the other side, what does that do to that contract?
Yeah.
It's two-way street.
It's a two-way street on a contract.
And with the severance agreement was, and I guess the other minutes of whether there was approval to go over, and I do remember the discussion about filling two roles, but, you know, if I'm a little short-staffed and I push to people, the same work, I'll either look at, you know, raising their salary or, you know, we don't usually just award, certainly when they're outgoing or eventually going to be outgoing, that all of a sudden there'd be that much more vacation time. If she couldn't leave then, I mean, even when there's another person, it's not so easy to leave for long extended periods of time as well, so. Okay, well, let's, table that for information for the next meeting. What I show now is the one we added, this morning to approve Craig to replace Teresa's, authority at First International. A motion for that?
So
Okay, Director Lees,
All second.
okay, Director DeVecchi, seconded. Let's do a voice vote, or, individual vote.
Daryl Lees,
yes.
Kelly,
Yes.
Darrell Waspis,
Yes.
Crystal,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Dan.
Yes. Okay, now we're to, general manager's report with a half hour.
Okay.
So you're making
I'm
your
not-
commitment
I'm
to the
not-
city.
I am not gonna be very busy today. I don't have a ton on this, but we'll just go through the water production, report like I have in the past. Water produced at the water treatment plant, in Voltaire was 15,530,000. The water taken from the city of Minot was 24,021,000. And then, the water taken from the partial water treatment plant was 1,157,276. And a lot of that, we've been doing a lot of flushing on the, construction side too, so that kind of got a little bit more inflated too. And then the total, water production for August was 40,709,000, with an average of 1,313,196. And I just have a running accumulation of, August to August on here, so you'll see what we did in August of 24 versus what we did in August of 25. And just like July, we're down again. So I think we were 5 million off pace from 24 in July of last year, and now we're about the same again. You can see, just because of the wet year we've had. And this is just a percentage breakdown of where we're getting our water from. One little project of note that took place, actually just last week, just west of Surrey. We had 2 water lines that had to be lowered as part of a project that was happening by Northern Plains Equipment. They were gonna be taking, 4 to 5 feet of cover off, about 500 feet of our line. So obviously, in our climate, that wouldn't be a very good, thing to have. So both lines were actually lowered. That was all on the cost of the Northern Plains Equipment. So that cost us no money out of pocket. They took care of all the construction costs. We just had to be out there to monitor it and then, kind of supervise the shutdowns and stuff like that.
Steve was doing the digging.
Steve was doing the digging, yeah. I think I have a map on this next one. I hope, yes, I do.
That's a big project. What are they building?
I think it's,
Oh.
Oh, about 80 acres or what I was told.
so it's just the location of where it was at, like that little red box, kind of the location of where the water main, was lowered at. Just to kind of give you a visual of where we're at. That's all I got. Super painless.
Director Lees?
So you knew it was Steam. Does Steam do other stuff for us? I mean, is it a company that familiar to us so that?
They have, when we get into, projects that are a little more complicated, like repairs, meaning there's gonna be cement involved and, a host of other things, we'll actually call Steam.
Okay.
So we have used.
So we're confident with the work. There was no issue there.
Yeah, they're very good. That project went very well.
This question, comment, note. So based on the numbers that you provided in your graph there, looks like we produce about 4.6 million gallons per year in water. So, but we only sell, wait, is that right? No, that's wrong.
That goes on the conversation of, water loss, right?
Right. Well, I came up with, I think are we losing 25% of our water? Based on some numbers I saw somewhere else?
It's really tough too, because when we're getting billed by Minot, we're kind of a little bit behind as well. So that's why when we were talking about water loss, it's gonna be tough until I get our own metering on stuff. So to answer your question, I don't believe it's that big of a number only because of the delay on how stuff comes in. I know
So
that
is
makes
that
sense.
something that we got like, we're gonna use some capital improvement money for that, or is that a needed
Well-
fund, or like, where are we gonna take the money from, and what kind of product are you looking at?
So what I am hoping to do is, right now, the city of Minot already meters the water they're selling to us. So I talked to Jason and I want to double up on the meters, meaning we would have our own meter on it. It would give us our own read, so I can get it from the first of the month on. So it's not like a delay in the billing process. That's the only way right now we're getting the water usage numbers by when we're getting billed. Then I get those numbers from Carla and she updates the spreadsheet, and that's how I get usage numbers. We're trying to fine tune that stuff.
And then as far as metering along the line, so we can identify the areas that we're potentially losing water due to leaking. Or
I'm hoping that with this computer maintenance management program that I'm gonna put into place, we're gonna have the program grab that data and then put it in a report that we'll see daily. So we'll be able to identify trends a lot quicker. So if we might notice a leak that maybe we didn't notice for days and days, maybe we might go from weeks to now days, we'll notice it now. I'm hoping that will be the end result of that.
But I kind of nitpicked you a little bit on the software. We have software, hardware that's enabling us to locate these leaks. I
Yeah.
think that would be a huge.
That's not gonna be the end all, but it's gonna help a lot with our preventive maintenance and a lot of different things too, but.
And so you said there, you must, obviously flushing doesn't utilize nearly as much as a break, but that's a part of it too. I mean, that's
That's a
gonna
part of
be
it. That's a part of
something
it.
we're all paying for that doesn't get used that going into some of these.
Correct.
And you have to flush lines all the time throughout the,
Well, especially new projects, I mean, they gotta flush like 2 times the volume, plus they gotta chlorinate it, then they gotta flush all that chlorinated water out of it. And then they gotta pass back T-tests, and if for some reason it doesn't pass, they gotta redo the process again, so it's really important they get it right the first time.
So it is nice to know any business. What you're selling. It's just nice to know. I mean, I realize how hard it is to narrow it down too.
oh, yeah,
You know,
but
but
you
to get
know,
it, a rough idea.
and then you know that if you have to do that process, all the users have to pay that as part of the business expense of even that doesn't go to the homes or businesses, so, yeah, that's good information. Okay, do we have any, our next meeting will be, October 28th. Any for the good of the order? All right, so we have a motion to adjourn. Director Lees, second by Director Dravecki. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you, everyone.
Yes, I'm on my way over.
Okay, time.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We're plenty of time.